House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
You're listening to House of Cards.
Today, the game is different.
I want to gamble. Gambling is a very serious business. Is that clear?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to House of Cards. This is Ashley Adams. I'm your host for the hour. And what an hour it is. We have one guest. Those of you that are familiar with the nonfiction poker world, you've probably read and appreciated James McManus's books, Les Wilson's books, Tony Holden, Al Alvarez, all have written about Las Vegas and poker. Well, we have a new author's book to add to that pantheon. The name of the author who we'll be interviewing is Doug Swanson. His book is Blood Aces, The Wild Ride of Benny Binion, the Texas gangster who created Vegas poker. So stay tuned. We will be back after a quick timeout.
House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Yeah, you, come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
You're listening to the House of Cards.
I'm raising the ante. Anybody wants in, get in. Anybody wants out, get out.
All right, I'll play.
Join us online at houseofcardsradio.com.
Are we going to play poker?
So, the poker game has begun.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Ashley Adams, your host, and you're listening to House of Cards. I got to tell you, I love to read, and I love to read most books about the world of poker and gambling. And up until now, I would have said that my absolute favorite authors, James McManus, Tony Holden, his great book, Big Deal, and Al Alvarez, Biggest Game in Town, and, of course, all the novels, Cincinnati Kid and Hustler and the like. I got to add another book to that list. Absolutely, listeners, if you have not gotten a hold of Blood Aces, which is the story of Benny Binion, his life in Texas and then in Las Vegas, you've got to get it. It is amazing, and we are lucky enough to have the author of this great book on the air now. His name is Doug Swanson. I never heard of him before, but sure do I know him now through this book. Welcome, Doug. Glad to have you on the show.
Hi, Ashley. Great to be with you.
Tell me, where are you physically right now? I know you're on the phone with us, but where do you live?
I am sitting right now in the newsroom of the Dallas Morning News. That's my day job. I'm a reporter for the Morning News.
Wow. Well, you sure did great work doing research on this book. How long did it take you to put all this stuff together?
Oh, about 2 or 3 years. I was working full-time throughout, so at my reporter job, so I had to squeeze it in on weekends and vacations and nights. So I would say, a couple of years of researching and then about 6 to 9 months of writing.
Were you a big poker player, gambler, when you decided to take this book on?
No, I'm a terrible poker player, and I don't gamble much because I can't stand losing, which I do most of the time. But I had covered the World Series of Poker for the Dallas Morning News, so I was familiar with it. And also I had written a story some years ago about a poker player from Oklahoma who was framed for murder, and Benny Binion helped pay his legal bills. So I was familiar with Binion that way. And you can't be around Dallas for long still without hearing the name Benny Binion. So he was in my head for a long time before I decided to write the book.
I see. So you were familiar with him. You had written about the subject to which he was connected, and you had actually covered the World Series of Poker, so you knew a lot of the lore.
Right.
Let's get right into it. And let me start by looking at the big picture, and then maybe we can drill down, and maybe you can tell us some interesting stories from the book. My impression of Benny Binion, and I consider myself, I've been playing poker for a lot of years. I've been to Las Vegas dozens of times. I've played at Binion's many times. I've met his son, Jack. I knew all the story from McManus's book about the murder trial. I thought I knew him, and I thought he was a kind of lovable rogue. Yeah, he was involved in crime, but he was, he did only what he had to do. He wasn't really a bad guy. Your book completely exploded that, I guess I would now call it a myth, because tell me if I got it wrong, but it seemed from your account that he was a serious, heavy-duty, violent guy, more like Al Capone than Diamond Jim Brady, or just a kind of unscrupulous guy. How would you characterize him big picture-wise?
Well, I don't think he was... He certainly wasn't a bloodthirsty guy. He was not someone who went out and killed people for the pleasure of killing them by any means. So that was not Benny Binion. And you say he was a lovable guy. Yes, he was. I mean, people would say, and still say, he was the best friend you could ever have and the worst enemy you could ever have. If he loved you, you loved him, because he got along with people really well and was extremely generous, and people are still extremely loyal to him. But if you were on his bad side, or if you got in his way, or he saw you as a business rival, you either needed to get out of town or you were in serious danger.
Well, it wasn't just his reputation of being tough, but he had a number of people killed, right?
That's correct, and the number is still up for debate. Benny Binion only admitted to killing himself a couple of people. He killed a rival's number operator here in Dallas, and he killed a rival bootlegger. He never served any time for that because he owned the cops and he owned the courts. But there were numerous people who tangled with Binion and his interests who wound up dead.
Who was the major rival that he ended up getting with an explosive device in front of a mailbox? Can you tell us about that?
There was a man named Herbert Noble, who was a rival operator here in Dallas, and he owed Binion a percentage of his games, and Binion upped the percentage, and Noble refused to pay it. So this started a series of attempts on Herbert Noble's life that continued for many years. Every time that the people hired by Binion tried to kill Noble, they were unsuccessful. They tried blowing him up. They tried shooting him. They tried any number of methods and always missed. Sometimes they got a piece of him, but they were never successful until very late in the game.
So how did they end up getting him?
Well, I should say that the locals here in Dallas started calling Herbert Noble the Cat because he'd been missed so many times. But he became famous because of these attempts on his life. He got fan mail from all over the world. He loved to go to his mailbox every day. So even the most inept hitman would figure that out. They put a bomb by his mailbox, and when Noble drove up to get his mail, they set it off, and that finally was the end of Herbert Noble.
Wow. And we are going to be back quickly, so stay tuned.
You're listening to the House of Cards.
Do you know what a straight flush is? It's like unbeatable.
Like unbeatable is not unbeatable.
Hey, I know that now!
Hey, poker players, welcome back. This is Ashley Adams. You're listening to House of Cards. I want our listeners, first of all, to remember that, or to learn that we're talking to Doug Swanson. His book is Blood Aces, The Wild Ride of Benny Binion, the Texas gangster who created Vegas poker. He was also a gambling operator in...
He was.
Right?
He ran some casinos here in Dallas. It should be said that he was not an innocent person by any means. He had a plan at one point. He was a pilot. He flew single-engine airplanes, and the police caught him one day welding bomb racks onto the wings of his airplanes. There were two bombs on the ground beside the airplane, and he had a map to Benny Binion's Las Vegas home in his pocket. And his plan was to put these bombs on the bomb racks and fly to Las Vegas, go over Benny Binion's home there on Bonanza Road, and drop bombs on the house.
But he didn't carry it out.
He did not. The police intervened.
Right. Tell us a little bit more about the span of time that Benny was in the business of illegal activity, because at least my impression had always been, yeah, he was in Texas. He was a gambler that occasionally crossed the other side of the line. He did some violent things, but then he kind of picked up stakes and moved to Nevada, and then he lived a clean life for the most part. But that's not really true, is it?
Well, partly he did start in Dallas as a gambler. He came here actually started as a bootlegger in the 1920s. This was during Prohibition. So he made his way here and was making a pretty good living as a bootlegger, but he wanted to get into the gambling business. He started this thing called the policy game, which was a numbers operation. Then he got into the dice business and was extremely successful from 1936 to 1946. He was the biggest racketeer probably in all of Texas. But he got run out of town when a reform administration was elected. So that's when he went to Las Vegas in 1946. And he was part of this great wave of racketeers, mobsters, other gambling operators who were descending upon Las Vegas to start modern Vegas with the casinos and all the operations there. And Binion had to swim in those waters. It was not a place for a guy who didn't know how to be violent, who didn't know how to break the law when he had to. And so numerous people kept winding up dead who confronted or didn't agree with Benny Binion.
Did he have a reputation of killing people that he found cheating at his place?
Not killing, usually, and he didn't do it personally, but you didn't cheat at Binion's if you did, or at the Horseshoe, rather. If you did, in many cases, you were taken out back and beaten or hosed down. There was one man who was shot in the head and killed on the sidewalk in front of the Horseshoe. He had created a disturbance. But the reputation was you didn't mess around there. They didn't call the cops. They had their own security force, and they would take you out back and handle you as they saw fit.
Mm-hmm. Did he have, I know you just mentioned that he was there at really the founding of modern Las Vegas when a lot of the mob was there as well. And I'm wondering if he ever had, if you could share with our listeners, if he ever had any alliances with the mafia, if they ever approached him. I seem to remember stuff in the book, but can you explain how he related to the much bigger mobster picture in the United States?
Sure. I call him in the book the Will Rogers of mobsters because he never met one he didn't like. He would talk about how Bugsy Siegel was the greatest guy in the world. Mo Dalitz was a good friend of his. He got along with them pretty well. Now, there came a time, he went to Leavenworth for tax evasion in the 1950s, and he lost control of the Horseshoe to some of the mobsters when he went to Leavenworth, and he had to come back and regain control. So there was some friction there with people like Eddie Levinson and others. But in general, he got along with them really well. He wasn't a part of the traditional mob. He had his own little racket going, but I think they all respected each other. And they respected Benny, and Benny respected them. And in general, they got along pretty well.
But he never formed any alliances that reached out to other parts of the country or the world as far as any of the illegal activity that the mafia was involved in, did he?
Oh, I think they were very tenuous. I mean, the Binion family ran the Horseshoe unto itself. They didn't need other connections, and they didn't, I think, aspire to branch out. They didn't have any ambitions to have horseshoes everywhere or to get into other activities, you know, the traditional mob activities of prostitution or drugs or trucking or whatever. They just wanted to run their casino, and they ran it really well and made a bunch of money. So they didn't need the mob, and so there was not that strong connection. Now, there were relationships. There's no doubt about that, but it was not part of the web.
I see. That's the conclusion that I came to. What is his legacy now? I mean, he had children. Of course, we know what happened to Ted Binion from James McManus's book. What's the legacy now of Benny Binion?
Well, I think primarily it's the World Series of Poker. I mean, he started it in 1970. He and his son Jack, just a handful of players there in the Horseshoe in downtown Las Vegas. It was really a publicity stunt at the time. He just wanted to get a few more people into the casino during the dead months of the year. And it grew a little bit more every year until becoming what you see today with, you know, thousands of players and millions in prize money. But I think that's his main legacy. But there's something else as well. I say in the book that I don't think anyone in American criminal justice can match Benny Binion's path from he started out as really a common street thug, and he became a racketeer, and then he became a respected businessman in Las Vegas, and then through philanthropy and relationships and fear, he became a beloved civic figure. And there are still people, many people in Las Vegas, who will tell you how much they love and respect Benny Binion. He became an icon in that city.
Unfortunately, his kids, with the exception of Jack, I suppose, really didn't follow in his good citizen footprint. Can you tell us, I don't know if any of your research must have involved talking to them or at least talking about them, what happened with Ted and Becky, they didn't seem to really live up to his standards of charitable good works?
Well, Ted, we all know the story of, and now there was a daughter, Barbara, who died. She had a drug problem, and she died, and there is some debate as to whether she committed suicide or just accidentally overdosed. So 2 of the 5 children did not survive. Now there's Brenda, who cooperated with me for the book. She's a rancher in Amarillo, Texas. She's a very nice lady, very warm, and was generous with her time and information, and she was a wonderful help to me in the book. So she has not been involved in the gambling business. She's far more interested in horses, as Benny was. I mean, he was a big-time rancher in Montana and loved horses and loved to ride and sell and all that. But there are these 3 children. Jack was, of course, involved in gambling and in the operations, and Becky did not want to talk to me for the book, so I can't really address what her motivations were or what she's doing now. But there are those 3 surviving children.
We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Dave Weishuttle from House of Cards with your House of Cards Gaming Report for the week of October 28th, 2019. MGM Resorts International has sold Circus Circus and Bellagio. In 2 separate deals, MGM sold Circus Circus for $825 million and executed a sale-leaseback deal for the Bellagio with a value of over $4.2 billion. The deal was struck with MGM competitor Phil Ruffin, who owns Treasure Island and Casino Miami. For the first time in New Jersey, an online component of a casino has taken in more revenue than its land-based counterpart. In September, Resorts Atlantic City's land-based casino brought in $14.7 million, while the casino's online component brought in $19.6 million. The online revenue figure is a combination of the online casino and the online sports betting platforms that can be played anywhere within the state. And finally, a lawsuit has been filed against Harrah's Casino in Joliet, Illinois, based on the casino's facial recognition policy. The plaintiffs are alleging that the casino's policy violates the Biometric Information Privacy Act, since Harrah's never informed the patrons in writing about the casino's facial recognition policy. Both of the plaintiffs are part of the Casino Rewards program, with other members of the Rewards program possibly joining the suit. Have any news or tips regarding casinos, gaming, or legislation? Send us an email at newsroom@houseofcardsradio.com and follow us on Twitter at HOC Radio.
A real abandoned prison in Philadelphia becomes the #1 haunted attraction in America. Terror Behind the Walls at Eastern State Penitentiary, presented by Lukoil. Are you brave enough to opt in for a more intense experience? You could be grabbed, sent into hidden passageways, and even separated from your group. This is terror like you've never felt. Save $10 with coupons from any Lukoil location. TerrorBehindTheWalls.com.
Chess. When one is outmatched, the game is over. Checkmate.
Not chess, Mr. Spock. Poker. Do you know the game?
A very interesting game, this poker.
It does have advantages over chess.
Love to teach it to you.
You're listening to the House of Cards.
Hey, everybody, it's Ashley Adams. Welcome to House of Cards again. Listeners, we're talking to Doug Swanson, author of Blood Aces. When you did research for the book, you were digging up some old stuff and maybe rubbing raw some sores of discontent from the past. Did you ever feel that you were in dangerous territory at all, or was it totally a safe operation?
Oh, I don't think it was dangerous so much as fascinating. There was a man in Dallas here named R.D. Matthews who was said to be one of Benny Binion's hitmen back in the day, and I found out he was still living here in Dallas. He was 91 years old. He was said to be the toughest man in Dallas in his day. He only had one eye because he'd been shot through the head, and I thought, I got to go out and talk to this 91-year-old retired hitman. So I went out to his house, and retired hitmen must have a pretty good pension plan because he lived in a big house with a nice pool, and we sat out beside his pool and had a wonderful conversation about many of the things that happened in the old days. He wouldn't talk about the people he was alleged to have killed. He drew the line there. But we had a great time, and that was fun. Now, there were some things that I think brought a little discomfort. I know the family is very upset that I say in the book that late in his life, Benny Binion became an FBI informant. They're extremely unhappy with me about that. They've made that clear. But the fact is, it's in the records. It's right there very explicitly in the FBI records that Benny Binion was a confidential informant for the FBI.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, that they don't seem to mind the fact that you have shown a spotlight on his criminal, illegal, murderous activity, but the fact that he was an informant really troubles them? It's just kind of...
I can't explain that, except that was new. I don't think that had been written about before. I could find no record of it anyway. So that...
how did you uncover that, and exactly what was it, and how did he get to be an informant?
Well, I uncovered it by getting his FBI file, which anyone can get. I mean, all you have to do is file an open records or a Freedom of Information Act request with the FBI and wait a little while, and they'll send it to you. And thousands of pages will come right to your doorstep via the U.S. mail. But I went through that and saw that and was quite surprised because Benny Binion hated the FBI. The FBI helped send him to federal prison for tax evasion. So he had no friends in the FBI. But this was Binion's M.O. his entire life. I said earlier he owned the cops, he owned the courts. He made friends with people in authority, and this was his way of controlling them. His best friend when he was in Dallas, his very best friend, was the most powerful man in the Dallas County Sheriff's Office. Now, can you imagine the top racketeer in town being good friends with the most powerful lawman in town? But that's the way it was, and that's the way he worked it his entire life. So I think that by being a confidential informant for the FBI, that was his way of keeping tabs on the FBI in Las Vegas. It was just a business decision on his part.
Well, but they ended up putting him away. Did he become an informant after the fact or before the fact?
After the fact. When he came back, after he served his federal prison time, he came back and started gained control of the Horseshoe again, and that's when he became this FBI informant. I'm not sure he ever gave them any valuable information. I didn't see any evidence in the FBI files that he was a particularly good informant, but he certainly was. As far as they have a status in the FBI that's called confidential informant, and that's what he was.
Well, it sounds a little bit like the Whitey Bulger story.
I think there are many parallels to that.
I have a couple more questions about this book, and I just want to also mention that for those that are interested in it, you have a paperback version coming out July 28th. Is that right?
That's correct. Late July, the paperback will be out.
Who's the publisher?
Viking, same people who did the hardback.
Ah, I see. Okay. Do you know what the price point will be?
I don't. That's a good question.
I mean, not price point, what the price will be.
They don't let me in on those decisions.
Okay. But a couple of other questions about the story itself. And one of the things that I'm interested the most in is trying to uncover the truth or the falsehood of the famous Johnny Moss Nick the Greek story of the game, the first game that allegedly took place.
Right.
And can you tell us, A, what the public story is, and then B, what your takeaway is about the likelihood that it took place exactly as it's been reported?
Sure. The legend is that Johnny Moss and Nick the Greek met in this great poker game, this battle for the ages in the Horseshoe, and this went on for weeks, back and forth and back and forth, and finally Johnny Moss won this titanic battle and then walked over to Binion's tables and lost the entire bundle of how many millions at the table right away. And it's a great story, and it's part of the great poker myth now. But as other writers have pointed out, there's no evidence that this ever occurred. There are no photographs still going around that show this battle. There was no contemporary news coverage at Nick the Greek's funeral. Nothing was mentioned about that. Benny Binion himself, toward the end of his life, sat down with an oral historian from the University of Nevada, gave a long interview that runs to about 100 pages, and did not mention this supposed epic occurrence one time. And he was going through the entire story of his life. So I've never seen any evidence that it occurred. James McManus, I think, comes to the same conclusion, and so do some other poker writers. That
Les
it's a great
Wilson,
story.
yeah, right. They both of them.
Great story, but where's the proof? Shouldn't there have been maybe just a couple of lines in the local newspaper about it going on? Shouldn't someone have snapped a photo?
Right, especially since at least the setup of it was all for publicity, right? It was all to bring attention. Well, how do you say you did something to bring attention when the newspapers of the time have not one word about it and there's not one photograph? You'd think if it was a publicity stunt, which allegedly, stunt's probably too narrow a term. If it was a publicity event, there would have been coverage.
Exactly.
So do you conclude that nothing happened or that something happened but not on that scale? What do you think? What's your takeaway?
Well, I'm hardly the expert on that, so I'm going to go with the other experts. And maybe something happened. Maybe the two were there together. Maybe there was a little game, and this thing has just grown over the ages to be this creation myth for poker. I don't know. Maybe it's there's a phrase in newspaper world about a story too good to check.
Right.
Maybe this is one of those.
Believe the myth, because it's a good story.
Spread the legend, yeah.
Right. I want to get to you a little bit, Doug. I know your day job is as a reporter in Dallas, but you've written some fiction in the past. What have you written, and what are you going to be writing?
I've written 5 crime novels. They were written a while back. They're all set in Texas, and I did that for about 10 years, and finally got tired of it and decided to move to nonfiction. So Blood Aces is my first nonfiction work, and I'm now at work on a history of the Texas Rangers, not the baseball team, the law enforcement organization, which is a very rich and detailed and violent and fascinating history.
What is the time frame that your history is set in?
Starts from 1823 and runs to the present.
Have you listened to the radio broadcasts of the Tales of the Texas Rangers?
Oh yeah, I'm listening to that, and I'm reading everything, and they've got quite an image, and they really worked to get that image. So I'm trying to figure out what the truth is behind the image.
That's great, and I just want to know: can you leave us with? We have about a minute and a half left. One thing that our listeners don't know about Benny Binion that might make them think, "Wow, I want to find out more."
Well, I think that Binion was the most beloved gangster ever in America. And I would defy anyone to prove to me otherwise. You can look at all the other gangsters, and some of them have, maybe part partial images of being having some affection, some community affection, all of that. But in the end, they all ended up in prison or defeated or in some dwindling retirement. But Benny Binion ended up triumphant. And at his 83rd birthday party, there were 18,000 people on their feet shouting, "Benny, Benny, Benny." Now, the free beer may have had something to do with that, but there is nobody that ended up the way Benny did. He was just of himself. There is no one like him, and I don't think his story will ever be matched.
Well, I can't think of a better told story than the one that you've told in Blood Aces. It was fascinating. I thought I knew a lot about it, and I learned many things that I didn't know. But more than that, the way you've told the story makes it compelling in a way that very, very few other nonfiction books are. I mean, I think of Positively Fifth Street, but even more than McManus, you have created a story that is fascinating as you go through it, and I really thank you for it, and I encourage all of our listeners to go out and get a copy. They don't have to buy a copy. They can go to the library, but I just love this book, and I'm really glad we got to have you on the air.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate it. It's been great fun, and I would encourage anyone. I love libraries, so yeah, go to the library, or if you have an independent bookstore in your town. That's a very tough business these days, and I would urge anyone to support the independents if they can.
Great. Well, we'll have paperback out July 28th. Doug Swanson, author of Blood Aces, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. It was fun.
Okay, take care. Listeners, we will be back after a quick break.
House of Cards is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Yeah, you, come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
This is House of Cards Radio with Ashley Adams.
Everybody is to leave here immediately. This cafe is closed until further notice. Clear the room at once.
How can you close me up? On what ground?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
I love that scene from Casablanca. It's so subtle. Everybody, I'm Ashley Adams. In case you didn't know, this is House of Cards, and this is my favorite segment, the mailbag segment. I'm in studio with my producer, Dave Weishattle, as we are every week. What do we have this week?
Well, first we have our snazzy new Party Poker baseball hat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Thank you, nj.partypoker.com.
It's legal in New Jersey.
It is. I hope so. I think I was on there every day. No, but we have them because Party Poker was nice enough to give us a bunch of them. So anyone who sends in a question or a comment gets a Party Poker.
Well, it has to be a qualifying question or comment, right?
Yeah, I know.
Some
how are you,
thing,
Ashley?
like, how do you spell your name?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Well,
what do we have?
And if you have a question, it's info@houseofcardsradio.com. Our Twitter address is @HOCRadio. You can leave a question for us on Facebook or call our hotline, leave a message at 609-474-4627.
Say that one more time, Dave.
Oh, all of it? Okay.
No, say the phone number again.
Oh, okay. 609-474-4627.
I hope people will call it.
It's a weird number because I think when Doug, our executive producer, and my brother got it, I think it spelled out something, Doug, didn't it? What did it spell out? It spelled out HOCR.
And it's a prime number.
It is? Okay. Well, all right, I'll take your word for it.
I don't know, but I figure now people will be looking at it really closely to make sure.
Yeah.
So, what do we have?
Well, a couple weeks back in our mailbag section, you said you were going to Arizona. And we got a question from Nick from Carterville, Illinois, who listens to us on WGGH Monster Radio. And he's going to the Phoenix area in a couple weeks and wanted to know if there are any good places to play.
Well, that's a very good question. And the honest answer is there is a gray market for poker that I was not able to tap into. These are rooms that are quasi-legal. There have been a number of them shut down. They are not on reservations. We had a guest who talked about them. I don't remember his name.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
My head. But it used to be a thriving mom-and-pop kind of industry all through the state. But according to this guy who runs a blog and who has a website, the state is in league with the legal casinos, the Indian reservations, that he describes as extortionary in the rake that they charge. I wouldn't go that far. But that they are going out of their way to try to crack down against these not quite legal places. So I haven't played in them, but there are a lot. Mm-hmm. And if he has anybody he knows, he should try to find one, I think, because they sound like the rakes are more reasonable. That being said, there are a number of Indian reservations, and I've played at a few of them. I find the rake to be a little high. It's like $5 maximum instead of $4 maximum. But compared to the rake that I paid in Japan, in Korea, and in India, and a lot of places around the world, it's certainly not extortionary. I would describe it as a little high. There's a wonderful game.
But no hot towel, though.
No hot towel.
Listen to our mailbag about his Japanese trip, and you'll get that joke.
Casino Arizona Talking Stick is a wonderful big room. There's a new poker room manager, a guy whose name I forget, but he's a wonderful guy, runs a very good room. A lot of games, a lot of game variety, a lot of players, and I would recommend it. There's also Fort McDowell. That's been there a long time. They don't have nearly the action. And there are a few other places. If you go on thepokeratlas.com, you can find all the places. That's up in the Phoenix area. Down in Tucson, there's Desert Diamond. There's Casino del Sol. And actually, there may be one other one. But those two have regular games. And I would, again, go on thepokeratlas.com and see what's going on.
Are these relatively close together? Or, I mean, can you hit two in one day?
Oh, yeah.
One isn't good?
Yeah. The Phoenix rooms, and I'm forgetting the third, the one that's really the rival to Talking Stick, I forget. He'll find out as soon as he goes to thepokeratlas.com. And Fort McDowell, you can play in all three. There's also a few smaller rooms up in the Phoenix area, also within 20, 30 miles. Tucson is about an hour and a half to the south. You can certainly do that also in a day. But if I were only to play in one place in the Phoenix/Tucson area, I'd go to Talking Stick and play there. If you had a couple of days or if you wanted variety, try any of the other ones out, and I'm sure you'll be fine. That'll do it, listeners. We're going to end the show, but come back next week. And until then, good luck and good day.
country in your head. Gone dead, riverbed.